A server aids a weary soldier, and the following day, helicopters arrive outside the eatery. The restaurant stood nearly deserted that evening, save for a handful of familiar patrons and a solitary figure by the window. His military coat was worn, its insignias faded from years of duty. His boots, though scratched, gleamed faintly, a remnant of discipline that endured. He sat in silence, gazing at the menu, yet it was evident he wasn't planning to order. Lily, a youthful server with gentle eyes, noticed him at once. Having worked at the diner for over a year, she had honed the ability to spot someone in distress. The way he glanced toward the exit, the pause in his hands as he reached for his pocket only to withdraw, revealed his doubt about affording a meal. Her heart ached. Raised in a military family, with her grandfather and uncle both having served, she recognized the look of sacrifice. Without hesitation, she made a choice. She approached with a warm smile. "Hello, sir. What can I serve you tonight?" she asked kindly. The man faltered. "Just coffee, black," he murmured. Lily nodded, acting as if she didn't see the way his fingers clutched the table's edge. "How about some food? Our special tonight is roast beef with creamy potatoes on the house." The soldier's eyes flickered with feeling. I can't take that," he said softly. Lily smiled gently. "It's already covered." She walked away before he could protest, heading to the kitchen. There she pulled out her own wallet, slipped out a few bills, and passed them to the chef. "Make it a hearty plate," she whispered. When she returned with the meal, the man stared at it for a long moment before lifting his fork. His hands were rough, hardened by war, bearing burdens few could fathom. As he took his first bite, his eyes shut briefly, as if savoring something beyond the food itself. When he finished, he looked at Lily with deep gratitude. "Thank you," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "Folks don't do things like this anymore." Lily smiled warmly. "They ought to." The man paused, then reached into his coat. He drew out a small coin and placed it carefully on the table. "This is a challenge coin," he explained. "It's awarded to soldiers for acts of valor and honor. I want you to keep it." Lily's breath caught. She had heard of challenge coins but had never held one. Its weight in her hand felt profound, meaningful. "I can't take this," she whispered. The soldier smiled. "You've earned it." He stood, gave her a small nod, and stepped out into the night. Lily watched him leave, a strange warmth settling in her chest. She had no inkling that this single act of kindness would soon upend everything. For the next day, the entire town would be shaken to its core. The morning rush at the diner was always hectic. The aroma of fresh coffee wafted through the air as patrons chatted over breakfast. Lily moved between tables, refilling mugs and taking orders, but her thoughts lingered on the soldier from the night before. The challenge coin rested in her apron pocket, its presence a constant reminder of their moment. Then, as she set down a plate of waffles, something odd occurred. A low, distant rumble filled the air, making the windows quiver faintly. The diner's chatter faded as people exchanged puzzled looks. "What's that noise?" a patron asked, peering toward the window. Lily felt unease settle in her stomach. The sound grew louder, closer. Then someone gasped, "Look outside!" Lily turned toward the glass door and her breath caught. Rolling down the street, one after another, were military vehicles. Armored trucks and Humvees in perfect formation, their presence undeniable. But that wasn't all. In the distance, something even more astonishing appeared. A massive military tank. Gasp. Oz filled the diner as people rushed to the windows, hands pressed against the glass. Some pulled out phones, recording what seemed like an unscheduled military parade. But no parade was planned. Lily's heart raced. This was not normal. The convoy slowed as it reached the parking lot. Soldiers in uniform stepped out, scanning the area before focusing on the diner. Then, from one of the vehicles, a high-ranking officer emerged, his uniform adorned with medals of distinction. His presence demanded respect. With steady steps, he approached the entrance. The diner fell utterly silent, every eye fixed on the door as it swung open, the small bell above it chiming softly. Lily could hardly breathe as the officer stepped inside. His gaze swept the room before settling on her. "You must be Lily," he said, his voice calm but firm. Her throat was dry. Yes, that's me. He reached into his pocket and pulled out something familiar, a challenge coin. For a moment Lily was too stunned to move. Her hand instinctively touched the coin in her apron, the one the soldier had given her. Her pulse quickened. The officer's expression softened. "Last night you showed compassion to one of our own, a man who has given everything for this nation," he said. He paused. "That man is not just any soldier. He is someone vital to us." Lily swallowed hard. Who is he?" The officer glanced at his men, then back at her. "His name is Colonel Michael Harris. He served in covert operations for decades, vanished from public view years ago. No one knew his whereabouts until last night." A shocked murmur rippled through the diner. Lily's mind reeled. She had no idea the quiet man she'd helped was such a revered figure. But before she could process it, the officer took a deep breath and said something that made her knees weak. "He asked us to find you." Lily's eyes widened. "Why?" The officer smiled. "Because he has something to say, and he wants to say it in person." At that moment, the front doors opened again. The sound of heavy boots echoed, and standing there, looking directly at her, was Colonel Michael Harris. For a moment, the diner seemed frozen in time, the only sound the soft creak of the door as it closed behind him. His presence was commanding, yet his eyes held the same kindness Lily had seen the night before. He was no longer just a weary soldier at a corner table. He was a man who had led troops, made sacrifices, and carried secrets the world would never know. Lily's hands trembled slightly as she gripped her apron. The challenge coin in her pocket felt heavier than ever. The stunned silence of the patrons and staff lingered, everyone too shocked to speak. Finally, Colonel Harris stepped forward, his voice strong yet laced with emotion. "I never expected compassion last night. I entered this diner thinking I was unseen, but you saw me." Lily swallowed hard. "I just wanted to help." The colonel nodded. "And that's why I'm here." He turned to the high-ranking officer beside him. "Major General Thompson, if you please." The general stepped forward, producing a black velvet box. With practiced precision, he opened it, revealing a beautifully engraved medal that gleamed under the diner's lights. A hushed gasp spread through the crowd. Lily blinked. What is this?" General Thompson's voice was clear and firm. "This is the Civilian Honor Medal, awarded to those who show extraordinary compassion and courage toward members of the armed forces. It is one of the highest honors a civilian can receive." Lily's heart pounded. "But I didn't do anything special." Colonel Harris shook his head. "You did more than you know." He took a deep breath, his gaze steady. "When I left the military, I lost my path. I gave my life to my country, and when I returned, I had nothing. I wandered from town to town, never staying long. Last night, I was at my lowest. I hadn't eaten properly in days. I'd lost trust in people." He paused, his voice thick with feeling. "Then you showed me kindness, a simple meal, a simple act, but it changed everything." Lily felt her throat tighten. She hadn't thought much of her choice. It had just felt right. The colonel continued. "That meal, that moment, reminded me there are still good people in this world. It reminded me I'm not forgotten, that soldiers like me still matter." Tears pricked Lily's eyes. General Thompson stepped forward. "We're here today because your act of kindness was noticed. Colonel Harris is a legend in our community. The men he served with, who owe him their lives, wanted to honor the woman who reminded him of his worth." The diner was utterly still. Even the toughest men visibly moved. Then, in a moment Lily would never forget, Colonel Harris reached into his pocket and pulled out another challenge coin. This one different, solid gold. "This," he said, holding it out, "is my personal challenge coin, given only to those who've profoundly impacted my life. Very few have ever received one." Lily hesitated before taking it. As it touched her palm, she felt its warmth, its significance. The colonel smiled. "You saved me in more ways than one, Lily." A lump formed in her throat, and she could only whisper, "Thank you." Then, as if on cue, the soldiers in the diner stood at attention. In a powerful, unforgettable moment, they saluted her. For a moment, Lily stood frozen, overwhelmed by the sight of uniformed soldiers standing tall, saluting her as if she were one of their own. It was almost too much to process. The diner, once alive with conversation and clinking dishes, was now silent except for the pounding of her heartbeat. She had never imagined anything like this, not in her wildest dreams. Slowly her fingers curled around the gold challenge coin Colonel Harris had given her. It felt warm, heavy with meaning. She looked up, her eyes glistening, and met the Colonel's gaze. "I don't know what to say," she whispered, her voice trembling. Colonel Harris smiled, his expression full of gratitude. "You don't need to say anything. You've already done enough." General Thompson cleared his throat and stepped forward. "Lily, what you did may seem small to you, but to us, it meant everything. Too often, veterans return home feeling forgotten, struggling to find their place. But one simple act of kindness, one meal, one moment, can change everything." The weight of his words sank deep into Lily's chest. She thought of all the veterans who might be facing what Colonel Harris had endured, how many she'd passed without knowing their struggles. The realization hit her like a wave. Tears slipped down her cheeks, but she didn't wipe them away. Instead, she took a shaky breath and looked around the room. "I just wanted him to know he mattered," she said softly. Colonel Harris nodded. "And that's why you're standing here now." The general turned to the soldiers. "At ease, men." The salute ended, but the respect in their eyes remained. They saw Lily differently now, not just as a server in a small-town diner, but as someone who'd made an impact beyond measure. Then something unexpected happened. One of the soldiers, a young man with a sharp jaw and bright eyes, stepped forward and placed a $100 bill on the counter. "For the best meal I've never had," he said with a wink. Another soldier followed, setting down a crisp bill, "For showing the world what true compassion looks like." One by one, every soldier in the diner walked up, placing money on the counter. The pile grew higher, the bills fluttering slightly. Patrons, inspired by the scene, joined in. Strangers just moments ago reached into their wallets, adding to the stack. Lily shook her head, her hands covering her mouth. "I can't accept this," she said, her voice breaking. Colonel Harris placed a hand on her shoulder, his grip firm yet gentle. "You can, and you will. This isn't just money. It's a symbol of what you've done, proof that kindness still exists, a reminder that no act of goodness goes unnoticed." Lily let out a soft, choked laugh, still in disbelief. "I was just doing what anyone would do." The Colonel's eyes twinkled. "No, Lily, not everyone would have done what you did. That's what makes you special." The diner erupted into applause, the sound thunderous, filling every corner of the small restaurant, vibrating through the floorboards. Lily felt her heart swell as she looked at the faces around her, people who had witnessed something extraordinary. As the applause continued, Colonel Harris reached into his jacket and handed Lily an envelope. She hesitated before opening it. Inside was a handwritten letter and a slip of paper. When she unfolded it, her breath caught. It was an official job offer. Lily looked up, wide-eyed. "What is this?" General Thompson smiled. "A new opportunity. Colonel Harris spoke of you, and we believe your compassion and heart would be an asset to the military community. There are many veterans who could use someone like you, someone who sees them, who cares." Lily's hands trembled. She had never considered a life beyond this small-town diner, but now she was being offered a chance to make a greater difference. Tears welled in her eyes, but this time they were tears of hope. She looked at Colonel Harris, then at the soldiers, and finally at the people in the diner who had supported her without hesitation. In that moment, she realized something. One small act of kindness had changed not just his life, but hers as well.